Hey everyone, Lord Commander Guts here, aka Mike G, here to talk about the directors I'd love to see on the Monsterverse. Now, I have pitched a few ideas on what stories I'd like to do, and if you've seen my current stuff, you'll see that I've already done Godzilla BC, Godzilla vs. Kong, Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla 3. So for those, right off the bat, let's start with Godzilla BC. Now, that is in itself like a duology trilogy. You could even do a series on that, really. And I can definitely go into depth with it too. I just did outlines to kind of overlap the overall overview of how I'd like those series to go in that era, BC. So I definitely have Michael Dougherty come back for Godzilla BC, along with Peter Jackson and Roland Emmerich. So why Roland Emmerich? Well, I didn't quite like Godzilla 1998, the American version, but it still had a lot of strong points, and after seeing a lot of the stuff that was coming in the sequels of it that never happened, I think he was actually playing in a pretty epic series there, a trilogy specifically. I did like a lot of Roland Emmerich's stories before Godzilla 1998, or rather after, such as 10,000 BC. That was actually a very fun epic. Now, that story probably not very popular, and I probably might get a little backlash on it, but I really did enjoy that story. It was exactly what I was hoping for. Adventure, some action, and, you know, at the end, the good guy wins. That's an escape for me, and I really enjoyed that from Roland Emmerich, and I'd love to see him come back for the second part, or maybe the middle portion of the Godzilla BC era. Now, keep in mind, the BC series takes place between two different eras. One's like 12,000 years ago, and then the other one's 6,000 years ago. So right around roughly the times of these last big Great Flood and the sinking of Atlantis, those kind of mythologies. That's kind of what it's based around. And I'd also love Peter Jackson to come in. So if Roland Emmerich can take the older era along with Michael Dougherty, whereas Michael Dougherty could probably focus more on Godzilla himself rather than the background stuff, and have Roland Emmerich work on the people, I think it could be a pretty good balance for the trilogy, or miniseries, however you want to put it. And have it conclude with Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson, I loved all of his movies, from King Kong to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and extended. You know, if I were to have it my way, I'd have Peter Jackson make a trilogy on each of the books rather than have Fellowship of the Rings be one movie in itself, because there's so much to intake. And, you know, I think Peter Jackson did fairly well to end it on a good note, even though he did get rid of Scaring of the Shire. That's okay. You can only fit so much in 3 hours. And one thing I want in all of these movies is to allow the directors choice and time, including Michael Dougherty. His King of the Monsters is supposed to be really long, and I want it really long. More time to enjoy action and build on the characters. So yeah, I'd definitely give all these directors free time, or free reign on the amount of runtime for their films or series, TV series, if we can go that route. Now for Godzilla vs. Kong, my outline's completely different from the actual Godzilla vs. Kong, but I just have it as Adam Wingard for now. He is the current director, and that's totally fine. I'm actually pretty anxious to see Godzilla vs. Kong come out. I know it's not going to be at all like my outline, but that's fine. Rodan, I did pitch a Rodan outline, and I'd love for Taika Waititi to be the director of that. I've loved his movies, and I love his characters, and his newest show, What We Do in the Shadows, is amazing. Him in Thor Ragnarok was pretty good too, and if you've read my outline and my actor's pitch, you know that he's actually a character I've written for in Rodan, so it'd be nice to kind of have him in as Rodan and kind of acting the piece. And moving on to Mothra, Catherine Bigelow. Now, I really enjoyed The Hurt Locker, and I think she did an amazing job with that. And Mothra is kind of a dark take on most Mothra movies. It's not very kid-friendly per se. It's got a lot of horror aspects, a lot of action, and some internal drama within, and I think Catherine Bigelow can actually pull this off. Godzilla 3 King of the Earth, I have Brock Eisner coming in for Godzilla 3. Now, as much as I love Sahara and the Crazies, I think what really won me over was The Last Witch Hunter. Great. And he was also an executive producer for A Sound of Thunder. Amazing story. So I'd definitely have him come back for Godzilla 3 King of the Earth, as to start to introduce these H.P. Lovecraft in the modern eras of these Monsterverse films. Now, as for current outlines, those are all the ones I have written thus far. Right now I'm in the middle of writing Ultraman, Gamera, and the Ancients immediately here, so they'll be out here within the next month or so. You'll see the first episode later today of the Ancients. And then the next ones are Kong 2, Jaegers, and then the last trilogy, which would be Destroy All Monsters Part 1 and 2, and ending with Rise of the Monsters. Now, can I do more than that? Sure. I want to kind of push all this out by the end of this year, and then move on to the next projects. I do have a few other projects coming in, but for now, let's finish up the directors for the planned outlines that I'm writing. So right now, I have The Ancients in production right now. I'm writing Part 1's completed, and I have everything kind of where I want it to be, but I'm going to pitch the director first. Now, I do want Jordan Peele, John Krasinski, and John Carpenter, as well as the Strauss brothers, if possible. I'm going to try and make 4 pretty decent-sized episodes for these to be one giant miniseries called The Ancients. It is a Monsterverse prequel. So right now, as it starts, I would love for probably the Strauss brothers to start it off here. They've done an amazing job with a lot of their films, and Jordan Peele has just started doing a lot of directing, as well as John Krasinski's horror movies that they've both done. Amazing works on both of them. And since The Ancients is, I want to say, 60% based on H.P. Lovecraft's creations and the mythos, I'm going to be introducing that as almost a semi-origin story. I mean, it's not quite the origin story. Like, you don't get to see where these monsters are coming from. They're just there. And it's hinted that the Ancients, you know, are the creation of everything. And the Outer Gods and the Elder Gods will be introduced. And you'll meet the Elder Gods pretty quickly here within the first episode and episode 2. You'll meet some of the other Elder Gods out there, and you'll kind of see this ancient battle come in. So what I'd like to have is Jordan Peele follow right after, and John Carpenter join in as well with John Krasinski in these 4-part, I want to say hour to hour and a half, maybe even 2-hour-long episodes, if I can make it that way. That way, this could be kind of consecutive, like almost run right after the other. And I think these guys have an amazing touch. John Carpenter, because The Thing was just utterly amazing. It's my favorite horror movie of all time. And with H.P. Lovecraft's monsters, there are some that are very Thing-ish. So I'd love to have him come back and do something with that kind of work. Now, this is all fan fiction and all kind of, you know, fan pitch. So I wouldn't worry about if this is actually going to happen. And this is all my takes here, all my favorite directors. So just take it with a grain of salt. I mean, don't take this for serious. And if you guys like to pitch any directors, please, I'd love to hear who you love to pitch. But let's finish the last few movies. Ultraman. Who would I like to come in? Zack Snyder. You may not like Zack Snyder, but I loved Man of Steel. The way he pulled off Krypton and the introduction of Man of Steel was just amazing. It's been a really fun ride for me, and the Zack Snyder cut has been mentioned, of course. That's coming out next year. I can't wait to see it. So I'd love to see his take on Ultraman. Now, Ultraman's a little different than what we've seen in like the Netflix show or the original show, whereas they're original men coming from the Ancients. It's kind of like a spin-off, you know, off of the Ancients, coming back to the modern times for the Monsterverse. And then following Ultraman is it's pretty much Ultraman Part 2, really, but it's called Gamera. Christopher Nolan, I want to kind of direct that. They both have a very dark, serious tone, and that's something I really would like for Ultraman and Gamera, since they're one right after the other, and they're kind of in the same story. So Ultraman happens in the same time as King of the Monsters, and Gamera happens at the same time as Kong vs. Godzilla. So I want those to kind of be simultaneous at the same time. So it's kind of like a look back as we progress into it. And then followed by that, we have Kong 2, Monster Island, as I've pitched the project name. And here, you know, I have Jordan Vogt Roberts come back as the director. He did direct Kong 1, and I think he did an amazing job with kind of exploring. And Kong 2 is going to be exploring more on that, and we're going to have one of the Toho villains, as well as other monsters crossing over into Kong 2, potentially seeing Kong's distant relatives. Then after that, I have Jaegers, which kind of introduces more Toho monsters as well. And I would love to have Guillermo del Toro to be the director of this one. He did direct Pacific Rim, and this would be kind of like a prequel to Pacific Rim if we're going off of that. And, you know, Pacific Rim would be taking place after Rise of the Monsters, which is the last film I have in my outlines pitched. And we'll move on to the last trilogy there, whereas Destroy All Monsters Island happens right after Jaegers. Jaegers kind of takes place right after Kong 2. Then Destroy All Monsters takes place right after that. And who I'd have direct that is Joss Whedon. I love his stories. I definitely love Serenity, Firefly. Those movies were amazing. And then he did a pretty good work in the Marvel Universe. So I definitely want him to do at least one the Destroy All Monsters. I think he does really good intros for movies. And I definitely have Adam Wingard come back. I'm having all the original directors come back. And so I'd have Adam Wingard finish it where Joss Whedon starts it with part 1. So there's Destroy All Monsters Part 1, Destroy All Monsters Part 2. And then to finish that trilogy is Rise of the Monsters. Now this is kind of like Phase 3, Destroy All Monsters and Rise of the Monsters, where it all comes together and ends. I want it. Who better to end it than the person who started it himself, Gareth Edwards, to direct Rise of the Monsters. Spoiler alert: Rise of the Monsters will have Cthulhu. I do want to kind of bring him back. He is in the Ancients, and he's coming back for Rise of the Monsters to kind of end it there, and we go into Pacific Rim. And if you guys want me to continue the Monsterverse, I definitely can, but it will take place after Pacific Rim, with Pacific Rim as canon. It'll be a little bit different, and I have a different approach to it, but I still want to include a lot of H.P. Lovecraft into this. So please let me know how you like this direction. It actually ended up being longer than I planned. I just wanted to do a couple outlines of Godzilla, but a lot of you guys really wanted more. So I'm going to try and give you as much as I can, and don't forget to check later today. I'll have another video out either today or tomorrow for the Ancients Episode 1. So keep an eye on for that. And those are my list of directors. Did you like the directors I have in mind? Who would you guys have direct any of these outlines that I've written? Or, you know, if non-fan fiction, but actually just regular Monsterverse created by Legendary themselves, who would you like to direct those oriented films? Just let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for letting me create this. This has been such a fun project to work on, and it's been such a pleasure to take requests. So please let me know in the comments if you have any more requests, because I still have a lot of time, and I have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more outlines to include any characters you guys want, or even original creations, which you will see in the Ancients. This has been a fun video though, so definitely thank you guys, and see you guys in the next video. This is Mike G, aka Lord Commander Guts, out.